Okay, we're going to have a look at these questions on the structure of the nervous system. So question 1, it says the autonomic nervous system plays an important role in homeostasis. The box below contains some terms that could be used to describe the features or activity of the two branches of the autonomic nervous system. So the words they've given us: acetylcholine, adrenaline, decrease, glycogenesis, glycogenolysis, increase, noradrenaline, motor and sensory. So complete table 1.1 below by inserting the most appropriate terms. So terms can be used once, more than once, or not at all. So some boxes have been completed. So they've given us the two branches here, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So the key thing to remember here when we're answering these questions is the sympathetic is fight or flight. So we're looking at anything there that's going to increase respiration. And the parasympathetic is rest and digest. That's the way to remember it and tackle these questions. So type of neuron from the parasympathetic and the sympathetic are going to be the same, because those are going to be coming straight from the central nervous system, so both motor neurons. Process triggered in the liver cells. Well, the liver is going to be looking at either releasing glucose into the bloodstream or removing glucose from the bloodstream to store as glycogen. So there's these two words here that we're going to be using. Now, if you break down the stems of these words, it makes it a lot easier to recognise what's going on. So the word genesis means new. So glycogenesis means new glycogen. So we are forming glycogen. This one here, lysis, means splitting. So if you look here, glycogen splitting. So what we're doing is we're splitting that glycogen into glucose. So in the parasympathetic nervous system, that's when we are resting and digesting. What we're going to be doing is we're not using or requiring glucose in our bloodstream, so we're going to be storing that glucose as glycogen. So the one that we're going to use is glycogenesis, new glycogen. And the process that we're going to use for the sympathetic, fight or flight, we need to release that glucose back into the bloodstream. So that's going to be glycogenolysis. That's the way to remember it, glycogen splitting. Okay, so what's going to be the effect on the heart rate? So parasympathetic, rest and digest, so it's going to decrease. Sympathetic, it's going to increase. And then our two neurotransmitters are noradrenaline, and the other one, which we know for the parasympathetic, is going to be acetylcholine. Okay, question 2. The peripheral and central nervous systems work together to enable mammals to respond to changes in their external environment. Outline the roles of the peripheral and central nervous system in responding to changes in the environment. So that's going to be, the names and functions of regions in the brain are not required. So that's our schools really mad. So we've got our stimulus detected, and we have an action potential in our sensory neuron. Then we've got a synapse. Then we've got an action potential in our relay neuron, another synapse, and then we have our motor neuron. Okay, so our 4 marks here, this is what we are going to be describing. So number 1, receptor or detects stimulus. Number 2, the sensory neuron conducts the action potential. Then we're going to have the relay neuron, which is part of the CNS, which conducts the action potential. And then finally we have the motor neuron, which again conducts the action potential, and that would go to the effector, and then we would have the effect. Now I've got plenty of marks here. I haven't actually talked about synapse, but I could mention that we have a synapse between, let's say, the sensory and relay neurons, or relay and motor neurons. Okay. Question 3. The drug metoprolol prevents stimulation of postsynaptic receptors in the sympathetic nervous system. So let's just remind ourselves, here's a synapse. So you've got your action potential passing down this neuron here. We know that the drug is going to block the postsynaptic receptors, and this is the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so sympathetic, remember, is going to be our fight or flight mechanism. So it's blocking, the drug will block fight or flight mechanisms. So which of the following conditions could this drug be used to treat? So I'm looking for which one of these 3 are part of our flight or fight. So tachycardia is when our heart rate increases, so yes. Muscle fatigue, no. High blood pressure also increases during fight or flight, so the answer is therefore going to be 2 and 3, so it's C. Okay, question 4. Hot flushes are one of the symptoms associated with the menopause. These symptoms are thought to be linked to falling estrogen levels. Low levels of estrogen are thought to disrupt the thermoregulatory centre in the brain. Name the part of the nervous system which includes the brain, and state the exact location of the thermoregulatory system. So the part of the nervous system which includes the brain is the CNS, or the central nervous system, and the exact location of the thermoregulatory centre is the hypothalamus.